Hiya, I'm Flint, a Hobbycraft artisan and cross-stitch expert. I love cross-stitch. It's a nice and methodical craft that lets you calm down and take your time. Plus, it looks pretty at the end. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to understand and get started with your first pattern. I'll be using a free DMC pattern from the Hobbycraft website. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe to the Hobbycraft channel and click the bell icon to be notified of future videos. You will need Aida. I recommend 14 count Aida to start with, an embroidery hoop slightly bigger than your finished pattern, fabric scissors, embroidery scissors, a tapestry needle, the embroidery floss according to your pattern, your chosen pattern. Cross-stitch patterns are a gridded guide. Each square is one cross and matches one square on your Aida fabric. Backstitch is represented by the bold lines on the grid and a stitch last. Each symbol corresponds to a thread colour as seen in the table provided. The colour number can be used when buying your embroidery floss to perfectly match the pattern. For example, black is number 310 in DMC embroidery floss. The pattern also shows how many skeins of each colour you'll need and how many strands of your embroidery floss to use when completing your cross stitch. Embroidery floss is made up of 6 strands. This pattern uses 2 strands for crosses and 1 strand for backstitch. Patterns sometimes tell you the size you need to cut your Aida fabric and what count of Aida to use. But here is a method to calculate your fabric size if your pattern doesn't. We first have to calculate the size of our pattern. This pattern is 70 stitches wide and 40 stitches tall. And I'll be using 14 count Aida, meaning that there will be 14 stitches per inch of fabric. Divide your stitches by your Aida count and round that number up to find out the rough size of your pattern in inches. My pattern will be 5 inches by 3 on 14 count Aida. We now have the pattern size, but our Aida will need to be cut 2 to 3 inches more than that on each side. This is to prevent fraying and to create a firm grip in your hoop as you stitch. And it also gives you more options for framing later on. After using a ruler to mark the height and width needed, use the line of holes in the Aida as a guide to cut your fabric out with straight edges. Cross stitches are often best started from the center of your pattern. To find the center of your Aida fabric, fold it in half lengthways and in half crossways, pinching at the corner where it all meets. Once unfolded, you'll be able to see the center. Wiggle in the center hole with your needle to make it easier to find as you start your cross stitch. Take apart your hoop by screwing the top and pulling apart the pieces. Line up the center of your fabric with the center of your inner hoop, then push the outer hoop down over the top. Adjust your fabric so it's taut in your hoop and screw the top tight. With your fabric cut and placed in the hoop, the next step is to find the center of your pattern on your chart, using the guide arrows or counting in from the edges. Thread your needle with the corresponding color to the symbol on your center square, making sure to use the correct number of strands. This N symbol corresponds to thread color 783 and uses 2 strands. On my pattern, I will stitch up 3 squares, skip 2, and then up another 3. Using the center hole of your fabric, bring your needle up from the back, leaving a small end of thread on the back of your Aida and into the diagonal hole above. When cross-stitching, I find it easier and quicker to complete a section not one cross at a time, but instead with the whole section of stitches one way, and then returning in the opposite direction to complete all your crosses. Once you're ready, pick another symbol to follow and do the same method, planning your route, finding the position on your Aida and stitching. Once you've done all the stitches of the pattern, you can finish with the backstitch, shown as bold lines on the pattern. This pattern uses one strand of black, DMC 310. I think it'll be easiest to start with the antennae, then follow the backstitch around the edge of the pattern. Where the pattern shows a straight length of more than one square, you can stitch your backstitch every 2 squares rather than 1. This saves time and creates a smoother look. Complete the rest of your backstitch following your chart, and you're done. If you'd like more help with the basic stitches of cross stitch, I recommend our Cross Stitch 101 video. There's countless ways to finish your cross stitch, in aperture cards, on gift tags, or even just in the hoop you stitched it in. Today I'm going to be showing you an easy method using a glass hinge frame. Firstly, cut your Ada to size, as usual using the holes in the fabric as a guide. Next, use your needle to eke out one row of Ada cloth on each end. This will create a nice postage stamp finish to your piece. Open up your glass frame and place your cross stitch where you fancy. You can also add any embellishments to your piece, such as dried flowers or a name title. Get creative with it. All there is to do now is to shut your frame. Easy peasy. A frame like this is great as you can show the front of your work, or if you fancy, the back of it. Be proud of your stitches.